What if everything we thought we knew about the US dollar was turned upside down? It started as a quiet financial proposal. It's sending shockwaves through central banks, sovereign wealth funds, and global markets. This is the Pennsylvania Plan, a strategy being seriously assessed by heavyweight institutions like Deutsche Bank. It's not some obscure economic model drafted in a think tank basement. It's a calculated blueprint that may radically rewrite the script of U.S. fiscal and monetary policy. But here's the twist. It could also be the clearest sign yet that U.S. dollar hegemony is in deep water, that the old financial order, the one built on unlimited trust in U.S. treasuries, is starting to break apart. And the timing couldn't be worse. We've seen the U.S. stumble in geopolitical bluff after bluff. The war declaration against the Houthi rebels in Yemen, it ended in a forced ceasefire. Plans to end the Russia-Ukraine war in 24 hours and form an anti-China front with Russia, dead on arrival. Even the grand strategy of triggering a shift in China's supply chain during the trade war backfired. Not only did China counteract each move with strategic precision, it hit the U.S. right where it hurts: rare earth dependency and rising business costs at home. So here's our question to you, and we want your take in the comments. Is the Pennsylvania Plan a genius workaround? Or a dangerous illusion? Yes or no? Stick with us as we break down how this plan could reshape the global financial order, but more importantly, what it hides: a ticking time bomb at the heart of the dollar system. Because at the end of this story lies a scenario that could permanently alter the balance of monetary power across the globe. Here's the truth. The bigger threat to the U.S. economy isn't the occasional weak jobs report or GDP dip. It's the erosion of trust in one very specific corner of finance: U.S. government bonds. For decades, U.S. treasuries were considered the ultimate safe haven, the no-risk benchmark. It's the anchor of global financial pricing. In practical terms, if you lent $100 to the U.S. government at 5% interest, you were all but guaranteed to receive $105 a year later. That's how dependable treasuries used to be. And that anchor shaped everything. If someone offered you an investment promising only 3% return, you'd laugh. Why would you risk your money elsewhere when you could sit back and earn 5% risk-free? But here's where it gets dangerous. When trust in U.S. treasuries falters, when buyers start pulling back, the government must offer higher interest to lure them back. That bumps the risk-free rate higher. And when that happens, the entire system gets hit. Mortgage rates rise. Auto loans grow more expensive. Corporate debt gets heavier. Eventually, investments across the economy start to crack under the weight of that rising tide. So when bond markets around the world begin doubting the safety of U.S. debt, that's not just a bad day on Wall Street. That's a historical pivot. This is the backdrop that gave birth to the Pennsylvania Plan, a plan not designed to rescue liquidity, but to rewire the flow of financial trust. So what is the Pennsylvania Plan at its core? Simple. It's a comprehensive attempt to bring U.S. government debt back into American hands, away from foreign creditors and into the portfolios of domestic corporate giants and banks. Why now? Because America isn't just facing twin deficits in trade and budget. It's also running dangerously high on a third: foreign ownership of U.S. assets. As of now, foreign investors own more American assets than Americans own abroad. This gives external powers leverage and chips away at U.S. financial sovereignty. On April 9th of this year, we saw a glimpse of that vulnerability. Foreign capital inflows into the U.S. suddenly stopped. Within hours, stocks, bonds, and the dollar all plunged simultaneously. This forced Washington to pause aggressive trade actions. The implicit message from abroad was clear: we control more than you think. That's what the Pennsylvania Plan wants to eliminate. The method: stablecoins. More precisely, USD-denominated digital stablecoins backed by U.S. treasuries. Think of it like this. For every $1 of a stablecoin issued, 80 to 90 cents of government bonds sit behind it as collateral. The government's pitch is this: tech giants like Apple and Google, along with big banks, would be incentivized to purchase foreign-held U.S. treasuries. Then, they'd use them to back new issues of stablecoins. The result? Treasury debt flows back into domestic hands, while the international influence of the U.S. dollar spreads through these digital tokens. A clever way to break foreign dependence without shrinking global dollar reach. To make this plan work, the architects have built in a mix of carrots and sticks. Step 1. Deregulate. Specifically ease the rules around bank leverage requirements. This would let banks hold more government bonds without needing to raise more capital. In other words, they're being encouraged to buy more treasuries. With borrowed money, now here's the issue. We've seen this movie before. Remember Silicon Valley Bank in 2023? The reason it collapsed wasn't reckless lending, it was bond exposure. The bank stockpiled long-dated treasuries with low interest rates just before the Fed raised rates. When newer bonds started yielding more, the value of their older assets plunged. That mismatch shattered their balance sheet. If we now ease regulations broadly, we're essentially inviting more Silicon Valley Bank-style collapses, but at a national scale. Worse still, it could tie the hands of the Federal Reserve. If banks become too vulnerable to interest rate swings, the Fed will be afraid to hike rates, even when inflation threatens the economy. That doesn't strengthen the dollar. It compromises the entire monetary toolkit. Another part of the Pennsylvania plan is a generous tax break. If companies use profits to buy U.S. Treasuries, they'll pay only a 10% tax. Instead of the standard 30% corporate rate. Sounds smart, right? In theory, yes. America's tax system is built around direct taxation, giving policymakers tools to steer capital where needed. But here's the unintended side effect. This move could supercharge financialization. Instead of investing in factories or research, U.S. companies might find it more profitable to hoard bonds or speculate via stablecoins. And we're already seeing this trend. Between 2020 and 2022, Tesla made more from crypto trades than selling cars. That's not an outlier, that's a signal. You can't shout about reindustrialization while giving Wall Street and Silicon Valley green lights to become digital bond dealers. The third major mechanism? Compulsion. Pension funds and insurance companies would be required to increase their holdings of treasuries, essentially absorbing more government debt whether they want to or not. Now imagine what that does to their portfolio stability. These funds are built on risk balancing. Equities, real estate, alternative assets, to hedge against volatility and protect retirees. If they get locked into treasuries, especially underperformed or vulnerable ones, the whole system becomes synchronized. One shock could tip everyone over simultaneously. It's like chaining the entire fleet together. If one ship catches fire, the rest go down with it. So yes, this plan may ease liquidity in the short term, but it dramatically concentrates systemic risk. Beyond domestic mechanics, the Pennsylvania plan surfaces a bold international strategy. The idea is to use stablecoins to push U.S. financial reach into countries excluded from traditional systems like SWIFT. Think Iran, think Russia, think unstable inflation-plagued economies like Argentina or Turkey. Private players would use Treasury-backed stablecoins to offer dollar-like access in markets the U.S. officially sanctions. Deutsche Bank analysts have coined a new term for this: meta-dollarization. It's not government-driven like traditional dollarization. It's a bottom-up invasion through cryptographic private tokens tied to U.S. policy assets. But underlying this strategy are two revenue plays. First, when domestic U.S. players buy back treasuries from foreigners using a devalued dollar, they're essentially repurchasing debt at a discount. Second, by using those treasuries as backing for stablecoins, Washington collects seigniorage on global stablecoin issuance, an invisible tax on worldwide dollar use. It's a masterstroke, at least on the surface. Now, let's confront the giant in the room. Even in the best-case scenario where this plan flows smoothly, stablecoins pose a hidden threat. They are not really dollars. They only borrow dollar credibility. Today, they service interests. But what happens when they no longer need to? The main adoption areas for stablecoins are already dollar-anchored, things like cross-border payments. But in local routines, paying utility bills, groceries, investments, stablecoins have little role. And here's the kicker. As stablecoins grow, they don't expand into new terrain. They mostly cannibalize the dollar's own backyard. If crypto dollar tokens fundamentally replace real dollars, what happens to the Federal Reserve's control over money supply and rates? You get dual systems, with growing divergence. Shadow money versus official currency. One regulated, one not. That's not how monetary hegemony survives. It fractures it from within. So where does that leave us? The Pennsylvania plan might look sleek. It aims to build a dollar to point zero. Agile, digital, decentralizing optics with centralizing intents. But beneath the surface, it doesn't solve the real pressure points. U.S. debt oversupply, global mistrust, or long-term dollar competitiveness. It's a temporary bridge over a structural collapse. And that tells us something deeper. That the age of unchallenged dollar dominance is winding down, not with a bang, but with a clumsy transition hidden behind smart financial packaging. What lies ahead? A reshaped international currency order is not just possible, it's likely. I want to hear what you think. Is this Pennsylvania plan a financial firewall or a booby-trap reinvention? Stablecoin expansion strengthening or sabotaging the dollar? Yes or no? Drop your thoughts down below. If you've stayed with us this far, chances are you're here for transformation, not talking points. Make sure you follow Endgame Compass and hit that bell, because the next cycle is already forming. And timing might matter more than it ever has before.